So again, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Again, depending where you are. I think it's become my opening line. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time. As always, we're going to have a topic. We're going to talk about HELOCs, and I'll explain that in a second. Today, that's the topic for today. But of course, as always, you are most welcome to put your questions directly related to the topic, but also related to real estate investing. If that's what you want to do, no problem. I'll be happy to address additional or questions that are not necessarily related to the topic, obviously related to real estate investing. So thank you for your time, attention. I like this. I've been doing this for a long time. I love teaching, sharing, and engaging with you guys. I always know that I become a better person, investor, someone who helps others by engaging with others. So I learn from my investors or from people that I interact with as well. So I thank you for that. Let's talk about HELOCs for a second. HELOC, Home Line Equity. Okay, that's what it stands for, Home Line Equity. For those of you who are not really familiar with it, that means, let's just take an example. A lot of our clients come from the Bay Area. In the Bay Area, some of them have purchased houses for their own sake. They're all primary residents. Let's just say 7 years ago for $1 million, I'm just making it up. And 7 years later, this house, in the Bay Area is now worth 1.7. Okay, let's just put it this way, 1.7, whatever, 1.5. So that means you, if you're in that situation, have created some equity in the property. And maybe we'll talk about that, for the Israeli investors as well. You created that equity, or the equity was created due to appreciation, and you want to tap into it. Okay, what can you do? You can go to the bank and say, I want to get a HELOC, a home line of credit on my house. The bank will appraise it, make sure everything makes sense, and then say, you know what, you still have to keep some buffer here, but we can set you up, and I have a lot of clients who do that, with a $300,000 line of credit. Okay, that means you can tap into you become your own bank for the moment, and you can tap into that $300,000, all of it, some of it, a small portion of it, whatever you want to do, and of course there's going to be interest. So typically HELOCs, you're not going to pay anything as long as you didn't borrow or pull money out. So it's like an account. There's $300,000 in. You can pull out money, $20,000, $10,000, $150,000, no more than $300,000 in this situation, and use it as you see best. Okay, what can you do with it? Okay, well, a lot of us would say, hey, easy. I have money sitting here. I can tap into. Let me go ahead and use it towards buying real estate. Obviously, that's what we want to do. Couple of things about that. When you buy money, when you buy real estate and using the down payment, let's just take an example. Let's just say we're buying a $200,000 home in Tampa, and you're going to get a conventional mortgage for 80, let's just say 80%, that's $160,000, and you need $40,000 plus change to purchase that house. Okay, let's keep it simple, not complicated. Let's say you borrow $40,000 because you don't have it in your cash, in your pocket, from your HELOC, from your line of credit, and you use it as the down payment, and then you get a conventional mortgage from a conventional bank, whatever bank it is, to purchase that rental property. Couple of things I want you to understand when you do that. Number one, if you didn't realize it until now, you are actually doing 100% financing. Okay, that means you just borrowed 100% of the money needed to buy that property. You took it from two resources, but it's still 100% financing. Okay, you're going to be paying interest on the HELOC, on the $40,000 that you borrowed, and you're going to pay interest on your conventional mortgage. Typically, from my experience in the type of properties we are normally buying, that will create a situation where your cash flow is going to be probably not even breaking even, but negative. Okay, not a lot, but maybe $100, $200 a month. negative, okay? Now, that doesn't have to be a scary position if you can afford it, right? You work, you have income coming into your life, and you're gonna pay that, $200 additional, $200 a month from your salary, and you're good to go. There is even some tax benefits for it, okay? But the important thing I want you to understand is that this is 100% financing, which is ROI-wise very good. You didn't use any of your own cash. Cash flow-wise is not necessarily a great position to be in. So I just want you to be aware of that. Now, second thing I want you to be aware, typically, the bank, the conventional lender, want to know where is your down payment coming from. If it's coming from your cash in your bank account, they're okay with it. If you disclose to them that you borrow that money, they would not approve the loan, okay? Typically, that's the case. I have one investor this week that I spoke to and said, you know what? I actually told my bank that's what I'm planning to do, and I had no problem with it. So that was a bit of a surprise to me to hear that the bank doesn't care. Typically, from my experience, they ask you, where is the money coming from? And if you disclose the fact that it's borrowed, then the bank will say, we are not giving you a loan, a conventional mortgage, to buy that rental property because you are using borrowed money for the down payment. Now, if you already taken that money out and you place it in your account, let's say the $40,000 I'm talking about, and you let it sit there for a month, probably 2-3 months at least, the bank will be less questioning or worried about where the money is coming from. So that means you may need to age or collect dust on your money, on the borrowed money, and pay a little bit of interest while you're waiting to buy your next property. So one way you can go about it is, if you don't have money sitting around, cash that you can utilize to invest as user down payment, but you have the HELOC, it's a great way for you to utilize that money in order to invest in real estate, right? To buy your next property or properties. Not only that, you may be even be able to take it to a little bit next level. The next level that I'm talking about, in today's marketplace, where inventory is tight, a lot of competition out there in most markets, you want to be able to get any advantage or edge when buying, right? One way to go about it is to buy cash. What if you don't have cash? You go to your HELOC and you say, I'm going to borrow $200,000. I'm going to make a cash offer on this property. Okay, so that makes it, gives it a little bit more advantage, right? The advantage of cash offer is both the cash itself, there's no mortgage involved, less uncertainty for the seller to worry about, but also a quicker close. So you can go to the seller and say, not only that I'm buying cash, but I actually can close within 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I need a week for the due diligence and another week for the closing, and we're good to go. Sellers like that. That gives you two advantages. And then after you purchase the property, you bring in your final, you do like a refi or delayed financing. We're not going to go into it, but basically bring in the final financing structure as if you're buying with a mortgage to begin with. There's a little bit more steps involved here, but I just want to give you the outline. So you can actually take your HELOC and say, you know what, let me use the HELOC or cash to get some advantage to what's going on in today's marketplace. And then once I acquire, I refi, and then I move on to the next one. And you repeat that process, and the HELOC is like is your fuel, your cash, helps you, enables you to do that. That will definitely help you, especially in today's marketplace. Another option you can consider, instead of investing in rental properties where you're going to lock your HELOC money, HELOC funds for a long period of time, the down payment at least, you can actually utilize and say, you know what, I'm going to be utilizing it to invest in a flip. Short term, 6 months, a year, let's just call it a year. You're going to borrow $200,000 or less, and you're going to place it probably with us on a flip property, and then we flip that house, you collect your, your proceeds, you collect your investment back, and you're good to go. So it's a short term, just touching the HELOC and not, touching or pulling money out of the HELOC for long term. Now, Another thing that I see some of our investors are doing is say, you know what, this is the HELOC. You know, HELOC are usually an adjustable rate and not fixed rate. It could, you know, it's my house. There's some exposure. I don't want to lock the money in a long-term rental type of a property. A flip is one option. A secondary option or another option is to use it as private lender. We work with some of our investors as private lenders. They're coming to us and say, we don't want to invest directly in the direct ownership of a flip or a rental, but we want to be more passive. We want to be the bank. So we work with you as the bank, as a private lender. You bring your money from the HELOC. Let's just say you pay 4% on your HELOC or 4.5%, and we pay you 8% on annual interest rate. So you get the spread, like 3.5%, 4% spread on the money that it's basically not yours. So it's it's an infinite return on investment. That's another option. So all of those methods are ways for you to utilize your HELOC. Okay. Now, one thing I want you to kind of keep in mind when you're considering doing something like that, be a little bit cautious. Remember that you are still investing, and there's still risk involved with investing, right? Remember that. Now, my biggest concern always when you touch your HELOC is that if something happens to the investment or the economy, it may reflect on your house, right? If something happens with your, with this property. So remember, there's maybe, even if you can borrow, let's say the bank enables you to borrow 300,000, maybe you should only borrow 100,000-ish or so. Maybe be a little bit more conservative or cautious about it, because this is your own home, and you probably don't want to jeopardize or put it in risk. Okay, so I would say, word of caution: don't borrow as much as you can. That's just my suggestion. You do whatever you want. Borrow as much as it makes more sense or keeps you out of harm's way. So that's just to be a little bit cautious about using the HELOCs. Now, if you are I'm just going to take a sidetrack. Our investors, they're coming from Israel. And in Israel, the HELOC as a really existent or available. There's something similar, but one of the biggest challenges investors in Israel have is getting mortgages in the US, which is almost impossible. Not impossible, almost impossible. Very difficult. And one way to go about it is, instead of selling your house in Israel, you can go to the bank and extend your existing mortgage, assuming that makes sense financially with you or with the property, and borrow or increase your borrowing power and use that borrowed money to invest in the States. So actually live in the US and have a property back in Israel, debating should I sell it or not, and they never, or many of them don't even think for themselves to sell it. If it's free and clear, get a mortgage and use that money, bring it over. If it's not free and clear, but you can actually increase the mortgage, even if it makes sense to you financially, then go ahead and do that and bring some of those funds here. You're actually borrowing money. You're borrowing it one state and investing it in another, in one country, and investing it in another. So that's just a way how to structure available equity. Some of us are, you can say, property rich, cash poor, and we always want to find out how to tap into financial resources. This is a great way to go about it. When you have a property, you can tap into the equity. And you know what I like about it most? You don't necessarily have to sell. You keep the property and you actually tap into the equity inside the property. So this is what I wanted to say to cover on the HELOCs. In a nutshell, if you have a HELOC, by the way, most of the banks, so far, I don't think I've met the bank, I'm sure it's out there, that they're going to give you a HELOC on a rental property. Let's say you have a rental property and you bought it for 10 years ago, and now it's worth 200,000, and you go to the bank and say, I want to get a HELOC on the rental property. I'm not sure there's a program, I haven't checked everywhere that there's a program for that. Maybe someone else knows. Typically, HELOC are on your primary residence. So if you have a HELOC or you have equity in your house, you don't have to get a don't have to do a refi. You can actually just take a HELOC on your property. You set it up first, and then you borrow as you see fit based on your needs, and then you can execute it or apply it in the following ways. Borrow the, only what's needed and use as a down payment alongside a conventional mortgage to buy a rental property. Borrow a bigger chunk, purchase it as if you're buying cash, with the seller. From the seller's standpoint, you buy our cash, you purchase that property, and then you refi or do delayed financing in order to secure the final financing with a conventional loan, and then you can bring all or most of the cash back into the HELOC. Borrow from the HELOC a certain X amount of dollars and invest in flips, in short-term type of investment, and the same way, another short type way to invest those funds is invest in as a private lender. Private lender simply means you become the bank. Instead of us going to a bank and borrowing money to make an investment, I go to one of our investors, he becomes the bank. We've done it many times, and then we invest. So the same concept. If you don't know what private lending means, to simplify it, you're the bank, and you behave exactly like the bank. You collect annual interest rate, etc. I'm not going to go into that. Maybe that's a topic to another session, maybe next week. So those are the ways you can probably use to tap into your HELOC. And again, just be a bit careful not to super extend. Remember, whatever you do, there's always risk. Even as a private lender, there's risk everywhere. There's risk. Remember, HELOC is usually your primary residence. I wouldn't want you to put your own primary residence, in a risky position for you. With that said, I am done with my topic about HELOC. If you have questions, please let me know. Let's see if anything comes in. Well, I see a lot of names that I missed. Well, it's great to see all of you. Thank you. And I'm going to wait here for just a minute. It takes some time. Sometimes it takes a bit of a time to get the questions in. Hopefully, okay, let's do an encouragement. The first one who asks a good question, not just how are you, a simple question, a good question, will get a free registration for the next webinar. Free registration on us. It's got to be a good question, not just a very, simple one to get the code. A true question. I'm surprised. I see Yuval and Nir that are always involved and asking questions. Nothing today. That's okay. You know what? That's okay. No questions. I guess the topic is all clear. No problem. You guys, thank you for spending your morning, afternoon, evening with me. I really appreciate it. Good to see a lot of those names. We are here to help you. If you want to talk to us in a more intimate environment, no problem. We do it day in, day out. Check the links for the upcoming webinars. Remember, the webinars are not on this platform. They are on a different platform. We teach. Those are not just webinars. Those are classes. We teach. We actually really teach, different aspects of real estate investing. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you either on the webinar, in person, or on the next session on Facebook in 1 week. Have a terrific weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.